take, a staple of filmmaking from the very beginning, and a technique which I feel has a special significance, especially in the genre of science fiction. Long takes are prolific and simple enough that even the casual moviegoer can recognize and appreciate them, and as a result, best of countdown videos and articles are not an uncommon sight. But what is it that makes the long take so impressive? What does its presence bring to a film? And what makes it so effective in the realm of science fiction? Let's find out. Initially, long takes were ubiquitous in cinema, a natural and practical result of the resemblance of many early films to stage plays and the delicate and cumbersome nature of the first film cameras. But years of experience and advances in technology eventually kicked things up a gear. This graph shows the average shot length in seconds of 7,500 American films between 1930 and 2006.
The world went and got itself in a big damn hurry.
The trend is certainly noticeable, and for good reason. As audiences became used to snappier editing styles, mistakes which ruin a take were less consequential, and otherwise terrible action sequences could be cut into something less terrible. Before long, the flow of most films had evolved into something which looked much more familiar, and today we even have ridiculous examples such as this. By the mid-20th century, the long take was no longer the default, and had evolved from a pragmatic choice into a stylistic one. That's not to say they were reserved for esoteric art house experiments about literally watching paint dry. They continued to be employed in a variety of films, such as Rope, Paths of Glory, Touch of Evil, I Am Cuba, and of course 2001: A Space Odyssey. While not its only quality, the long take was traditionally used as a method of bringing a sense of realism to a film, and none from this time period exemplify this better than Orson Welles' Citizen Kane. The film's cinematographer Greg Toland wrote about how he and Welles made constant efforts towards increasing realism. Crucially, Welles held the idea that the technique of filming should never be evident to the audience, which led to his insistence that scenes should flow together smoothly and imperceptibly, and as a result the action was arranged so as to avoid direct cuts. The numerous resultant long takes invite the audience to believe the on-screen events are true, place themselves within a landscape, and do not attempt to mislead, imply, or obscure with cuts. This same sentiment can also be found in the writings of film theorist André Bazin, who argued against any device that manipulated the audience's interpretation of a scene, such as the rapid cuts of montage. Like Welles, he preferred an approach which had a faith in reality, one which adds nothing to the reality, it does not deform it. It forces it to reveal its structural depth, to bring out the pre-existing relations. Now, while Bazin was writing about films whose plots and backdrops were grounded firmly in reality, like Citizen Kane and the Italian neo-realist Bicycle Thieves, I would argue that the same attitude could still be applied to science fiction. As a genre, it is inherently free from the constraints of fact and reality, exploring alternate universes and supposed futures along with imagined alien beings and technologies. According to King and Krzywinska, in science fiction cinema, it creates new spaces, dimensions, and frontiers that redefine the human sphere of operation and often challenge our definitions of what exactly it is to be human, linking visions of science and the unknown to speculations about human evolution and destiny. Your first reaction then might be to think that the goals of the long take and of science fiction do not overlap, but further consideration will prove this otherwise. There are many qualities, including realism, which a long take can bring to a film, 3 of which are incredibly valuable when engaging with the themes and tackling the questions which science fiction introduces. These qualities are realism, place, and spectacle. It might seem counterproductive to strive for realism in a genre born of the desire to explore worlds and concepts unreal, imagined, and theorized. But it is in fact beneficial for the science fiction film to at least pretend to be realistic and take itself seriously, as this is the ideal way in which its ideas, themes, and commentary on society and technology can be afforded context and meaning. King and Krzywinska argue that the key opposition found in science fiction films is between the human and the products of science, technology, and rationality, and that the central figure is likely to be representative of the human. Science fiction protagonists are often as human as they come. Relatable, somewhat likable, and blessed with sensibilities similar to our own, as if they had been plucked out of our universe and thrown into a new one, in order to make the moral conflicts and fanciful perils which arise relatable and relevant to the contemporary viewer. Therefore, when long takes are utilized which make the technique of filming less obvious and force the scene to reveal its structural depth. The environments which the protagonist and everyone else inhabit are made to seem more real, asking the viewer to care about the events which take place in them and granting the points and speculations it makes a certain credibility. A long take implies that a film is comfortable and confident in its imagined setting, enough to linger until every inch of the screen has been scrutinized. In addition, the long take enables the filmmaker to engage in a unique kind of environmental storytelling and world building. In the opening scene of Children of Men, set in London in 2027, we follow our protagonist as he leaves a coffee shop. First of all, we can spot this emblem on a policeman's helmet, CR Charles Regina, as opposed to ER Elizabeth Regina, implying Prince Charles has taken the throne and become King Charles III. This bus advert is offering £3,000 for a kidney donation. A military Chinook helicopter flies above the city, and motorcycle rickshaws ride through the streets. The rest of the film is littered with many more small details such as these, little points of interest which embellish the setting, that is, a world where women have become infertile and Britain is experiencing a refugee crisis as most of the rest of the world has devolved into anarchy. These details don't really deserve their own cut. In fact, it would be jarring and almost patronizing for them to be made explicit. But the long take provides a platform for Bazan's structural depth to exist, whilst avoiding the cardinal sin of exposition dumps through dialogue. The boundaries between the concepts of realism and place can easily become blurred, and that's because a long take often achieves a sense of both. In Kogonada's video essay, What is Neorealism?, he demonstrates how two different versions of the same film, one cut by David O. Selznick and the other by neo-realist Vittorio De Sica, end up leaving vastly different impressions due to De Sica's appreciation for longer takes, in-between moments, and extras. Neorealism is an approach
in which time and place seem more critical than plot or story.
Pivotal to this approach is what Kogonada calls a lingering shot, often lengthy enough to be considered a long take. It can linger on a space after the protagonists have left, leaving it empty or filling it with extras we'll never get to know, and it can even explore further, investigating and building a sense of place independent of the main characters. And of course, there are the long takes completely devoid of any recognizable characters. Disinterested with the plot, they instead exist to give color to the world it takes place in. Evan Pushak, also known as the Nerd Writer, examines a 3-minute sequence of this nature in his video essay on Ghost in the Shell, a Japanese animated science fiction film set in 2029. The sequence effectively pauses the action and the flow of the narrative in order to explore the setting, a gritty cyberpunkian vision of a city based visually on Hong Kong, with a number of long takes which linger on seemingly unimportant aspects. But to call them unimportant is to miss the point. To explain this scene, Pushak cites Understanding Comics, the Visual Art by Scott McCloud, specifically McCloud's distinction of a certain trend in Japanese comics, movements from panel to panel that can be defined as aspect to aspect in lieu of the customary action to action. Most often used to establish a mood or sense of place, time seems to stand still in these quiet contemplative combinations. And Pushak goes on to argue this.
What director Mamoru Oshii accomplishes here is to expand and draw attention to the audience's perception of space in the film.
The goal of all this, the meandering and the lingering, is to create a window onto a world which feels alive, one which you could step right into. Pushak summed it up well when he said the emphasis is on being there, not getting there. Like realism, a sense of place helps lay the foundation for the questions asked by science fiction, but also plays into our desire for cinematic escapism and spectacle. Spectacle in itself is paramount to our enjoyment of film, and long takes help provide that sense of excitement and wonderment in spades, whether you're the kind of person intrigued by 17 minutes of unbroken dialogue or 6 minutes of unbroken bullet dodging. Another reason why long takes go hand in hand with science fiction then is its umbilical relation to spectacle, a key dimension of science fiction according to King and Shavinska, along with speculation and unfamiliarity. We watch films to be entertained, to be wowed, to be taken to new places and introduced to challenging new ideas, and science fiction is no exception. Spectacle is also the main reason why all of those videos and articles showing off the greatest long takes of all time exist. It's pretty easy to get caught up in them since they can be just so damn impressive whilst also coming off as seamless, whether the work has gone into meticulous special effects or coordination and timing on a grand scale. So whether it's setting the scene for questions about the future of humanity, immersing yourself in an imagined cityscape, or just making you think, how the hell did they film that? Long takes and science fiction go hand in hand.